Well, guys, it is time. The SuperBOX S7 Ultra.
If you've been looking at the SuperBOX S7 Ultra, there's probably one reason it caught your attention. The claims surrounding this little box are huge. More than 10,000 channels, over 100,000 video-on-demand selections, 128 gigabytes of storage, Wi-Fi 6, and support for high-resolution video. But is the SuperBOX S7 Ultra actually worth buying? And what exactly are you getting for your money? That's what we're going to find out. Before we get started, one quick note. This is an independent product review for educational and informational purposes. I'm reviewing the device, its hardware, software, advertised features, and overall user experience. I'm not providing instructions for accessing copyrighted or subscription content without proper authorization. Now let's take a look at the S7 Ultra. Right out of the box, this feels more like a traditional set-top box than something like a Fire TV stick. You've got the S7 Ultra itself, the remote, HDMI cable, power supply, and documentation. And setup is pretty simple. HDMI goes to your television. Connect the power. Then connect to your home network. But this is where we get our first advantage over a lot of smaller streaming devices. You can use Wi-Fi 6, where you can connect directly using Gigabit Ethernet. And personally, if I've got Ethernet available near the television, that's what I'm using. For a stationary streaming device, a good wire connection removes a lot of variables. But if Ethernet isn't practical, having Wi-Fi 6 is definitely something I want to see on a newer streaming box. Now, check out the connections. You've got USB 3.0, USB-C, Ethernet, and Bluetooth 5.2 support. So there's considerably more flexibility here than you typically get from a basic streaming stick. And then there's something else that immediately stands out. Storage. The S7 Ultra gives you 128 gigabytes of internal storage. That's a lot of storage compared with many mainstream streaming devices. With 128 gigs, you've got considerably more room for compatible apps, updates, and normal device storage. And then we've got the remote. This is one of those features that sounds almost insignificant until you're sitting in a dark room. The remote is backlit. And I really like this. You don't have to start pushing random buttons or turn on a light just to figure out what you're pressing. There's also voice functionality, which means less time fighting with an on-screen keyboard. Little things like that can make a surprisingly big difference when you're using a device every day. Now let's get to what everybody really wants to know about. What I can show you is how the device itself performs. And honestly, that's what I think we should be concentrating on anyway. Because 10,000 channels don't mean much if the box is slow, frustrating, or constantly buffering. So let's look at responsiveness. Moving through the interface feels quick. Menus respond without making you sit there waiting. And that's one of the first things I look for with any streaming device. Click, response. Click, response. That's what you want. Because you can have the greatest specifications in the world, but if there's a delay every time you press a button, you're going to hate using the thing. The interface has also been redesigned for this generation, and I think that's important. A television streaming box should feel like it was designed to be used from across the room with a remote. Not like somebody took a smartphone interface and stretched it across a 65-inch television. Navigation is pretty straightforward, and getting around doesn't take long to figure out. Now here's another number you'll probably see advertised. 6K at 60 frames per second. The hardware specifications advertise decoding support up to 6K at 60 frames per second. But don't misunderstand what that means. It doesn't magically turn everything you watch into 6K. Your actual picture quality still depends on the source material, application, television, network connection, and other factors. Personally, I care a lot more about smooth, reliable playback of normal high-resolution content. That's something you're going to notice every day. A giant resolution number printed on the box? Not so much. And that brings us to what I think really separates the S7 Ultra from a basic streaming stick. It's not one single feature. It's the combination. You've got 128 gigs of storage, Wi-Fi 6, Gigabit Ethernet, USB 3.0, USB-C, Bluetooth 5.2, a backlit remote, and a television-focused interface. So there's a lot packed into this little box. But does that mean everybody should buy one? No. And this is where I think you really need to consider how you're going to use it. If all you watch is Netflix, YouTube, and 2 or 3 mainstream streaming services, something considerably simpler may already do everything you need. There's also something I recommend with this device and really any Android-based streaming box. Be careful about what you install. Only install applications and services you trust. Pay attention to permissions. And make sure you have the appropriate rights or subscriptions for whatever content you're watching. That's not specific to SuperBOX. That's just good advice for any device you're connecting to your television and home network. So after looking at everything, here's where I land on the SuperBOX S7 Ultra. From a hardware standpoint, there's a lot to like. Wi-Fi 6 and Gigabit Ethernet give you excellent flexibility for networking. You've got plenty of connectivity. The interface is easy to navigate. And that backlit remote is something I wish more manufacturers would include. Then, of course, you've got the headline-grabbing claims. More than 10,000 channels. Over 100,000 video-on-demand selections. Those are certainly impressive numbers. Just remember that those are advertised claims. I'm not independently verifying the licensing or availability of every piece of content represented by them. And personally, I wouldn't buy any streaming box based solely on a giant content number printed on a website. I buy it based on what I can actually evaluate. The hardware, the storage, the connectivity, the interface, the responsiveness, and whether those features solve a problem with the streaming device I'm already using. And that's the question I'd ask yourself. Does the S7 Ultra give you something your current streaming device doesn't? If the answer is yes, this is definitely an interesting box to look at. But if your current streaming setup already does everything you need, don't upgrade simply because somebody threw a huge number at you.
Okay guys, I did give this dude a run for its money. I changed a few settings on my end, and man, this thing works. You can check the description. I'll have all the links to it. Are you going to ask, is it good or better than the VC box? I would say whatever you're more comfortable with. This is not going to treat you bad. But yeah, guys, like I said, I got all links in the description. I got discount codes and so forth. If you want to get on this, now might be the time. Okay, guys, I'll see you on the next one.